Did he just kind of feel larger than life to you like he does to the rest of us?
Well, Orson was larger than life. He was a huge man. Physically, he was really larger than life. But he was, yes, it was surreal. I had come from Steve McQueen, Orson Welles. So I guess what that did for me in life all these years later, there's nobody who can intimidate me. It just isn't. Steve McQueen, Orson Welles. That's how your life starts. You're set. So because it was a completely different experience from really the luxury of at 6 a.m. This was really like low budget. And that was, vastly different. And Orson, because he was Orson, was treated like a king. And the rest of us, even though there was a tremendous cast and everybody had great careers later, everybody else, we were treated like, kind of like second-class citizens. And so Orson we were all in these honey wagons, and it wasn't a nice one. And, I had just come off of a tour of the entire country, staying in the finest hotels and limos, the whole thing. Now I'm in a dressing room that we called the coffins because they were so small and not nice. And but we were young, so you want to experience things, and I did. And so, and we were up high on a hill, and I'm telling you this story to kind of tell you what Orson was like. And we could see down the hill in kind of a little valley, we could see Orson's 50-foot luxurious trailer and his chef's trailer, which was right next to it. And then at lunchtime, we could see, we would all like be spying on Orson. And the chef would come out with, just like in a movie, and with a bottle of, just trying to show you, the bottle of wine, saying, how about
Let
this?
him take it. Let him smell the cork. Let him do it all.
All the whole thing. And we were like watching this from, high above, and he had the crystal and the china and the silver, and he would choose the wine, and then we could smell his lunch cooking, which smelled like delicious. And the chef would bring out his meals on a, covered by a silver cover, and lift it up. Mr. Wells. And meanwhile, a truck would come up, a pickup truck, and like throw our lunches at us in brown paper bags. And it would be something like, a soggy tuna fish sandwich, a can of Coca-Cola, and maybe a little bit too soft apple. And that would be ours. And I had just come off of, luxury, and now I was doing this. But it was actually good for my ego, And so Orson, you would think with all that he would have been obnoxious, and he wasn't. And particularly with me, because all of his dialogue mostly was with me and mine with him. We had a few scenes with other people, but he was great. And he had that voice, the Orson Welles voice. It was just mesmerizing in person, mesmerizing on film. And he was a very big man. And there are pictures of us on the internet. I'm in this kind of floating hippie kind of costume, and he's in his warlock costume. And those are, kind of great treasures, because there's not a lot of people around who work with Orson. And so I'm going to jump way ahead here. Years and years and years and years and years later, I'm producing the show that I produce now, Hollywood Radio Players. And we were looking at, well, what, because we reenact classic radio plays, because I love classic radio, classic dramas and comedies and musicals. And I just love them all, from the 1920s to the 1940s and even beyond a bit. And so I decided that I was going to direct War of the Worlds as an homage to Orson, the Orson I had known, and an homage to War of the Worlds, which I loved and had heard 150 times. And because my grandmother had a vinyl record of it. And so I did. I directed that. And my producing partner, Michael Carnegie, who is a incredible, does many voices, an incredible actor, and a great producer, and a great editor. And so I cast him as Orson because I looked at all the people we had available to us, and he was, to me, he was Orson, and he did him so beautifully. When you see the show, if you see the show, I hope you will. You will see how beautifully Michael does Orson. He plays another character too, but man, does he do Orson well, Orson Welles well. And so I jumped many decades, ahead just because I wanted to tell you that. And in the show, we have a wonderful, we have had two wonderful hosts. Our first host was Tom Bergeron, and he did Seven, Tom Bergeron, Emmy winner, Dancing with the Stars, so forth. Mm-hmm. And he did our first 7 shows. We've just done number 10, and that comes out tomorrow, actually. And then Tom had to go off and do a movie, poor guy, with William Shatner, lucky guy. And so Lisa Gibbons is our new host, and she is just on her second show with us. But when I introduced, because Tom did the hosting of War of the Worlds, and then I did an intro just because it was so personal to me. And then I know a lot about the history of War of the Worlds and what really happened in 1938, as opposed to the mythology of what happened. And so I talk about that, and then we do the play, and the radio play of that Mercury Theater did, 1938, that Orson did. And Orson, a lot of people think that 1938 War of the Worlds is when he first became well known. It's not true. He was 27 years old, I think 27, when he did War of the Worlds, but he was already a top Broadway producer. He had 3 hit Broadway plays running it simultaneously. So I really wanted to do that for Orson. It was like my homage, my gift to Orson. And you can see it. Go to HollywoodRadioPlayers.com.
I actually have some questions about that a little bit later on. And
sure.
One of the next things I kind of wanted to chat about was Mr. Majestyk.
Sure.
As I recall, you were doing a play that wasn't maybe the best fit for you, and in kind of an unorthodox manner, kind of like your story earlier about going into the agent's office. Did you just go straight into Walter Mirish's office and just kind of bypass your agent to do? How did that happen? I understand there's a story there.
So I was cast in Mr. Majestyk, but I was also cast in this play simultaneously, and I figured I could not do both, because Mr. Majestyk was shooting on location in Colorado, and the play was here. And I thought it was a very important play at a very important theater. And so I, much to my agent's total horror, chose to do the play. And so I turned down Mr. Majestyk. And because my career had taken off and I was being offered a lot of stuff. And I turned down Mr. Majestyk and said, "I'm so sorry. I really want to do a play, and there's this play. I'm so sorry, Mr. Mirish, I'm so sorry." And then I started rehearsal for the play, and it was really quick. I realized, oh my goodness, this is a mistake. So I called up Mr. Mirish. I always called him Mr. Mirish. I sometimes called him Walter, but I didn't feel comfortable with that. It's Walter Mirish, my gosh, he'd done everything. And so I called him up, called his office, got him on the phone. And I said, "First, let me apologize, for not doing the film." He said, "No, honey, I understand. You wanting to do a play, totally understand that." And I said, "Well, I don't want to do the play. I've changed my mind. I've been in rehearsals, and this is not going to be a good thing for me. And I want to do Mr. Majestyk." And he said, "Well, I have these actresses in the office right now in the waiting room. They're auditioning." I said, "Oh, no. Gosh, I didn't want to hurt anybody or anything. He said, but I really want you to do the movie. I always did. And he said, just come on over to the office and I'm going to send everybody home. And I said, oh, no, no, that's really terrible. He said, no, it's kinder. It's kinder that way rather than letting them audition and then telling them they don't have it because you already have it. You've always had it. And just come over to the office. We'll talk about it. So I did. I went over to the office. All the other actresses had gone home, which I felt real bad about. And we talked about it and just talked about, I don't know, concepts and, how I would do this and how I would play that. And I did, I ended up doing Mr. Majestyk and not the play, which was a huge flop. So it was one of the good decisions I made. It was one of them.